I take skiing seriously, but I also care about looking good while doing it. For example, sometimes I dress like this, and sometimes I dress like this, but usually I'm somewhere in the middle. And I totally believe that the way you dress is a form of self expression, and especially while skiing, it's an opportunity to have fun. And I've always been so inspired by the heritage of skiing and by the style of it all. And I'm also fascinated by all the technology and development of modern ski wear. And I think that everything has a time and a place. And regardless of what kind of skiing you tend to do, there's no denying that the clothes and the accessories are an investment. And skiing is generally an expensive sport, and it can all add up. So, I want to share my advice so that you can make well informed decisions about the ski wear that you are interested in purchasing and investing in, so that you don't waste your money or fall into any of these marketing traps. Because there are a lot of trends and a lot of flashy advertisements, and potentially a lot of unqualified recommendations being shared. And just a general tip that I always tell my friends that ask me for advice is to be mindful about where the recommendations are coming from. Because any influencer can claim that a piece of clothing is the best, but if they're not actually testing it or skiing in it in various conditions, then the recommendation isn't really that helpful. Like, even me, you should only trust my advice if you trust the kind of skiing I do, and if you like my style, and if you appreciate the details that I personally look for when I make my recommendations. And if you tend to scroll in search of inspiration for stylish ski wear, then something helpful is to look for or follow skiers that influence instead of influencers that ski. And by that, I really mean to find people that spend time in the mountains and that understand the variations in conditions and what makes a product good, and who also happens to like being stylish. Instead of someone who just loves fashion, who may be making bold claims about a ski outfit or an item of clothing when maybe they only skied in it once, or maybe they just wore it to a mountain and didn't ski in it at all. And I think it's fine to get inspiration for things that look cute. I do it all the time. But I strongly suggest that you continue doing research before you make a purchase because ski wear is expensive. And you shouldn't be wasting your money on things that are not good quality or are not reliable or are not useful, especially if it's a single item that will need to work in a variety of conditions. So I'm going to share 5 trendy things that you should be wary of. The first trend is vintage ski wear. I love shopping vintage in general, but when it comes to skiing, sometimes it's just not the most practical. A lot of times with vintage ski wear, the materials are really degraded, and there's a risk that a pocket could have a hole in it, or that a zipper can break. And when you're on the mountain, you shouldn't have to be distracted by things like that, because you should be focusing on having fun and on improving your skills. And I do love buying things on resale platforms. I think it's a great way to save money on ski wear, but I would suggest looking for things that are in great condition or like new condition so that you can avoid having to worry about the same issues I just mentioned about vintage ski wear. The second thing you should be wary of isn't really a trend, but I feel like there are a lot of misconceptions around ski wear being waterproof. I've heard stories and seen situations go viral because some people assume that all ski wear is waterproof, which is not the case. But they see something marketed as ski wear and they assume that it is always appropriate for any kind of skiing, and then they go to the mountain in bad conditions and they're disappointed that their outfit was not waterproof. And I think that this kind of situation can be avoided if you just know what to expect and know what you're buying. And there's a rating system that most ski brands follow when they do make claims about being water resistant or waterproof. For example, you may see that a jacket is rated to 10K or 20K. So, one of my favorite ski jackets that I wear the most isn't waterproof. It's a down puffer jacket from Perfect Moment, and it's actually machine washable, which is one of the reasons why I love it. And I just know not to wear that jacket if there's a chance of rain or if I see that it's going to be just warm enough that snow could melt. So, something else that I always advise my friends against are one-piece ski suits. I know they look great, but I just personally feel like they're not the most practical. And my biggest issue with them is if you have to go to the bathroom, not only is it really inconvenient to take it all off, but it's also cold. And you have to be really careful while you're wearing ski boots in a potentially slippery bathroom to not let any part of the suit touch the wet floor while you're in there. I know people say they like one-piece suits because they're warm, and I think maybe there could be a time and a place for it, like if you know you're only going to be skiing for a short amount of time. But if that's the case, then I wouldn't consider that practical or versatile. And especially if you're making an investment in a single ski outfit, I think a separate jacket and a pair of pants are going to be more practical. And I think you can achieve the warmth of a one-piece suit by just tucking in your base layers into your pants and by wearing a jacket that's long enough to keep you covered. And that actually reminds me that the other day I saw a one-piece base layer, which was probably the least practical thing I've ever seen for the same reasons I just mentioned, but to the extreme. So, something else that's on trend but is not really practical are all white outfits. Not only because they're easy to get dirty, but mostly because you risk decreasing your visibility when you're on the mountain. So it's more so a matter of safety. Especially if the conditions turn cloudy, it's just harder to see someone that blends into the snow. And that brings me to my last trend to avoid while we're on the topic of visibility. Because something that I always advise against are luxury designer ski goggles from brands that aren't primarily for skiing. And specifically, designer goggles with lenses that are not photochromic, or if they don't have interchangeable lenses. The lighting conditions on the mountain can change drastically throughout the day, or throughout the weekend, or throughout the week. And if you have goggles with lenses that are not photochromic or cannot be changed, then even if you spent $500 on them, they will still only be useful in one specific setting. And that's not exactly practical. Because if your lenses can't adjust to the conditions, whether it's automatically with a photochromic lens or manually with interchangeable magnetic lenses, then it will be hard to see the snow. And if it's hard to see the snow, then it will make the skiing more difficult. So I use a set of goggles with interchangeable lenses, and I will also link some other highly rated options in the description below. So something else I get asked about, which is a trend that I personally love and that some people might not agree with, are in-the-boot ski pants. This is just a preference of mine because I like to ski fast and I feel more agile when I wear something more fitted, like a ski racer. I've been wearing the same brand of ski pants for years, which is called Air & Snow, which sadly I think they're not in production anymore. So I'm actually searching now for other similar options that I love just as much because I want to be able to make a recommendation whenever I'm asked. So stay tuned for an update on that. So I've gone over a lot of things to avoid, and if I can give general advice for what to invest in, especially if it's your first investment in skiwear, then I think versatility is definitely important, and finding things that are highly rated by real skiers. I will link a guide to all the outfits and base layers and mid layers and all the gear I use in the description below, so you can check that out if you're curious. And I do think that it's possible to be a well-informed consumer and still have fun with it, because skiing is supposed to be fun. And like I said, there's a time and a place for everything. And I try to ski as much as possible, and for the last few years, I've been doing at least 30 days a season. So my wardrobe has expanded a bit. I had showed you this outfit at the beginning of this video, and it's fun and frivolous, and I bought it on super sale knowing that it is not totally practical and that I would only use it on occasions when I know it's going to be a sunny day and if I'm going to be with friends, and that I'll be taking it relatively easy. And then there's also this outfit that I wear when I'm off-piste or when I know that the visibility on the mountain could be really low. So I wear this to be as visible as possible, and it's also a pretty versatile set with ventilation zippers in case the altitude and the conditions along the trail have the potential to be extreme. This outfit is from Half Days and I love it, and I can link it in the description below along with my detailed review about each piece. And then on a normal day of skiing, I usually look like this. So I had mentioned this Perfect Moment jacket earlier in this video and how it's the jacket that I wear the most. And I actually love it so much that I just bought the updated version of it in a different pattern. So you can find my review for these jackets linked below as well. And the last bit of advice that I want to share is that the best way to make any outfit look better is to ski well and to have confidence on the mountain. And confidence comes from being prepared and building experience. So check out my other videos where I share my advice for how to do exactly that, and also how to improve your skills so that you will look good and feel good on the mountain. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions about anything I mentioned, then definitely leave a comment, because I'm always happy to hear from you and always happy to connect and always happy to talk about skiing. My channel is about following your passions and about prioritizing your hobbies and about knowing that it's never too late to try something new. So if that sounds like you, then don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.